In addition to field measurements, Sigma Animation needed professionally conducted interviews with each of the witnesses.
Then what happened? Did the lights stay the same?
For this, they hired Eric Eklund, an independent investigator from Philadelphia with 10 years' experience conducting field interviews.
Massive circular white lights
over the window, but the light...
This is the first UFO sighting that I've done. These witnesses are the same type of witnesses that I deal with in my line of work. What I'm doing here is just gathering information to create a picture. I'm not trying to decipher fact or fiction. I'm just trying to get all the information that I can and present it to Sigma Animation.
And then when it got right in line with me, like
after completing his interview with Melvin Knoll, Eklund met Officer Barton on Whitacus Road, where his first sighting took place.
What happened when you were coming down here?
As I was coming down here, just as I crested the hill in front of us, I saw what appeared to be two very large white circular objects almost directly to the southeast of our location right here.
Eklund frequently checked with the eyewitnesses to verify their object placements.
I have a Polaroid here. This is that direction. Does that look like that direction to you? Yeah. To the best of your recollection, can you draw in there what these lights look like and where they were? And that's roughly the size and the shape of the objects that you saw. You were describing that there was like a light emitting from these.
The photos became invaluable because it allowed us to use the dimensions of the object that they drew on the photographs in creating the model.
The team continued to interview and measure at each sighting location, verifying many details. David Massa combined his preliminary drawings with photographic backgrounds and showed them to Officer Barton.
Well, this one right here, I mean, it's almost like going back to that night, like I was saying earlier. It's almost like somebody took a photograph. If this had been all just white, it would be almost like we were reliving that night all over again.
To further pinpoint the location of the UFO in the night sky, a 40-watt argon gas laser was set up at several sighting locations. The laser used steering optics and small moving mirrors to direct an intense beam of green laser light that helped to trace the exact flight path of the object.
Whenever you point out across the horizon and try to say an object was located there, when you don't actually have something to look at, it's very difficult to try to understand what the person is saying. We're hoping that by firing this laser light, we can somehow demonstrate, at least approximately, where this object was located. Okay, now that we have the rough dimensions, at least as I understand it from Officer Barton, let's drop this down so it's much closer to the horizon.
Hold on.
Keep going, a little more, a little more, a little more. Okay, stop, that's good.
After 3 days of interviews and site surveys, Sigma Animation concluded their field investigation. Eric Eklund was impressed by the credibility of the eyewitnesses.
There are some situations when you can tell that somebody is lying and when they're not. I don't believe that they're lying to me. They did see something up there in the sky. I don't know what it is, but I don't think they're trying to pull something over on somebody.
And again, they were just very...
Now that this data had been collected, Massa and his team faced a bigger challenge: translating that raw data into images that would stand up to any analysis and accurately represent what had been seen in the night sky over Illinois. After an exhaustive field investigation into the January 5th, 2000 UFO sightings, David Massa returned to his Virginia offices. He began to sort through the mountain of detail he needed to accurately reconstruct the testimony of these witnesses.
When returning to my office, I found that we had a tremendous amount of data to compile from the various sites in Illinois. The first step that I felt I needed to do was to get the survey data onto a single map.
Starting with aerial pictures, David plotted the survey points taken in the field onto the screen, creating a large grid that included each of the sighting locations. This interactive map allowed David to zoom in on Millstadt, Illinois, for example, and find greater details.
You can see the survey points that were taken and how they align with the roadway.
In the case of Officer Craig Stevens, David plotted the location and heights of landmarks in the sighting area. Officer Stevens stopped his car near this tree. He looked west and saw the object banking as it flew towards Dupo. Using these graphic maps, David studied each sighting location carefully, determining dimensions and movement to exactly match the testimony of the witnesses. Then, looking at the overall map, David plotted the flight trajectory of the object. It apparently flew in a southwesterly direction, making a large arc that ended in St. Louis. The arrival times and distances traveled were all consistent with the taped conversations. Next, David began modeling the objects that were seen by the witnesses.
I then took these rough models and pulled it into another modeling package, a modeling package associated with animation software. The first step in the creation are very crude models that match the dimensions of the object seen by each of the witnesses. This particular object was the first version of what Officer Stevens saw. And then this is a three-dimensional view of the object, which I can rotate around and we can see the back a little. And if I do just a quick render, you can see how it kind of takes shape.
David kept in touch with the witnesses using a secure website.
With a computer and a modem, they were able to get onto the web and review the work that I've done to make the imagery to their liking.
David uses these same modeling tools in each of the eyewitness cases.
Here we have the rough approximation of Officer Barton's object, and after many iterations with Officer Barton adding detail to the object, we were able to create this final object. You can see from the top view, still very triangular, but a little more rounded. The light bar going across the width of the back. In the bottom view, you can see the three white lights and the one flashing red light.
With these fully rendered 3D models completed, the final step in the animation process was to place these new computer-generated objects onto the backplates shot at the various sighting locations.
We decided to use live footage to place these computer-animated models on top of to give a more realistic and more accurate depiction of what the witnesses saw.
The backplates shot by the video crew had to match the direction, view, and the speed of the craft when it moved.
Once the camera was tracked, we then had to move the object in 3D space in a way described by the witnesses.
And then it went over the treetop.
For his part, even though the shapes vary between triangular and square, David Massa knows that each image is based on facts from the field and detailed descriptions from the eyewitnesses.
I'm confident that I have accurately depicted the information given to me. It's for others to decide whether or not this is a UFO from outer space.
With the animations complete, David returned to Illinois to reveal the final renderings to the witnesses and share with the world a visual reality of their experience.